Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the CasketMInds podcast, your weekly destination for all things gaming, including the latest in game industry news, in-depth reviews, impressions, and much more. As always, I am your host, Mitch, alongside Drew. What's up, Drew?
You know, I am ready to play some Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So just as a heads up for the time of recording this, it is a day after the launch of Final Fantasy 16. I literally just got my copy. I pre-ordered it from Best Buy, and Best Buy loves to screw me over. So I just got that probably like 15 minutes before Drew and I hopped on the call to record the podcast. So it's still installing because I got it physically, of course, because we're big physical men here, as we like to say weekly on the
Oh yeah,
Casket Minds podcast.
we
But
like to get physical up in here.
100,000% Drew. Uh, it has 10 minutes left. That's very exciting news. So as soon as the podcast ends, I'm going to go personally picked up from where I left off in the demo because that's a great feature, and I am very excited to see where this story goes. But we're not here to talk about Final Fantasy 16 today. That's a discussion for another time. Today on the Casting Minds podcast, we are going to be doing our first review, and that review is going to be of Diablo 4. Just as a heads up, we are going to be talking about story stuff, and we will be spoiling it. It has been 3 weeks. The story is not super long. For most things that you want to do in Diablo, which we'll get to again in a few minutes, Diablo is very in-game heavy, so you have to beat the campaign slash story in order to really get into the meat of Diablo. With it being 3 weeks past, Andrew and I both beating it and wanting to talk about the story, we're just going to give you a heads up now. We will be spoiling some of the story content. So yeah, if that's not your thing, of course you can skip ahead to the news sections or just later. We'll be time stamping this so that if you do want to avoid spoilers, that's totally fine. Just come back to it whenever you do finish it and hear our thoughts on it. On top of that, we got some big news this week coming from the Nintendo Direct that decided to happen. New developments in the Activision acquisition with Xbox, Kojima news, and more. So stay tuned to episode 6 of the Casket Minds podcast. So before we dive into the Diablo review, we'd like to thank all of you guys for the wonderful support. If you want to continue supporting our show and staying up to date on the latest gaming news, be sure to subscribe to our channel, give a thumbs up on our video, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Twitter at CasketMinds. So, Drewby, what are your overall impressions of Diablo 4?
So, I I wouldn't say like I'm a huge Diablo fan because I've mostly just played Diablo 3. Um, but I was like really looking forward to this game. I thought it looked awesome. The beta was awesome. And I loved Diablo 3. So I was like really excited for this. Especially how they were kind of doing this blend of like Diablo 3 gameplay with a lot of like RPG elements of Diablo 2. Because that's something that people didn't love about Diablo 3. They kind of dumbed down a lot of the RPG features. So I was like, super hyped for this game, and I feel like it lived up to my expectations. I mean, like, whenever I'm not playing the game, I think about it all the time. It's just a super addicting gameplay loop. The story was really good. And yeah, like I had a lot of fun with this game. I don't honestly have an insane amount to say other than like I just was super addicted to it, and I still am, and I can't wait to dive into the first season when it drops in a few weeks.
Yeah, likewise. I was very much looking forward to Diablo 4, and I fell in love with it very, very quickly. So my history with Diablo is when I was a kid, one of my good friends' dad was super into PC gaming, and I mean
Mm,
this is early 2000s. Keep that in mind. So it wasn't popular whatsoever. It was very niche.
yeah.
Uh, and he was obsessed with Diablo 2. And I would watch him kind of, and then like obviously being a kid, I was like, I'm not interested in a game where you're in hell. That's weird to me. I don't want to go to hell. Um, But later on, I think I was either a junior or a senior in high school when Diablo 3 came out. And it was only for PC at the time. So I had a shitty laptop and I grabbed that, and luckily it had a DVD drive on it because back then you needed DVD drives. But I went to GameStop, bought Diablo 3, came home, installed it. And it ran pretty good because Diablo's not very demanding. But it it changed my life in a way. I never had played anything like Diablo at that time,
Mhm.
and it, I just fell in love with it. But I didn't fall in love with it in the sense of like most people that love Diablo, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not like super into. I wasn't super into like the end game or anything like that. I beat the story. I was like, yeah, that was really good, and then I put it down and didn't go back until it hit consoles later. Um, I dabbled in Diablo 2 Resurrected. A buddy of mine is super into Diablo, and Diablo 2 is his favorite. And when it came out, he actually bought me the copy because I wasn't going to get it because I had heard that it was drastically different and slower than Diablo 3. And so he bought me the copy. He was like, dude, just play it with me. And I was like, fine. So we actually didn't do that until a few months ago before Diablo 4 came out. And I only played for like maybe 3 to 4 hours of it because
Yeah.
the purpose was just to play with him because Diablo is more fun with friends. But uh, yeah, I enjoyed Diablo 2 Resurrected, but I didn't enjoy it as much as 3. I think I like the fast paced action of it. And from my understanding, Diablo 4 takes the gameplay of 3, kind of amplifies it, makes it even better. And then, but takes like the RPG and like the skill tree elements from 2 and like the dark story,
Yeah.
lores, atmosphere, aesthetic, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, and really dug into that. I will preface this before we get into this. Drewby and I have beaten the campaign, but we haven't got to dabble in much of the in-game content yet. And I want to add that note just because I know that there's a lot of Diablo fans that are going to be listening to this and being like, "Well, you're not even reviewing the real part of Diablo." And it's like, yeah, that is true, but the game's been out for 3 weeks, and we're both very busy people, so um, we're gonna dive back into it, and we're gonna be talking about Diablo more than just this review podcast,
Yeah.
because again, we're both obsessed with it. We can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
Even though Final Fantasy is here, I can see myself going to Diablo whenever I need to just kill some time, just hop into a nightmare dungeon,
Yeah.
get through it, and
Especially whenever the next the first season drops, we'll
yep,
definitely be covering that.
100%. I'm very excited for that. Uh, I just so again, I never cared for like the seasons or because I'm generally not someone that usually goes back to a game that unless it's like multiplayer, like for instance, like Rocket League is my go-to multiplayer game, right? So like I can just hop in and hop out. I don't have to really worry about anything. So like keeping up with like seasons every time um is new to me, and I learned
Yeah.
about like, the seasonal characters in Diablo, just like with this iteration of Diablo 4, and like the seasonal characters and how you have to create a new character each season so that you get the story quests and like the battle pass stuff and whatnot.
Hmm.
So I'm not super interested in grinding this base character super high because from my understanding, like it takes just as long to get from 85 to 100 than it does to get from level 1 to 85. And that's a lot of grinding,
Yeah.
right? And like I'm a person that normally if I play a game and I like it, I put it down and I don't come back. It's usually the ones that I love to go back and replay.
Hmm.
Uh but and that's usually for like story stuff. And there's so much content these days and so many games that I want to play that I just don't have time for, that
Yeah.
grinding a character that I can't use, in another season isn't appealing to me. So instead of starting a new class, I'm just gonna wait for season 1 to drop, and then I'm gonna have that Diablo itch, in a month's time. So I'm not concerned about that. Yeah, I don't want to grind my character to level 100 per se, and then just have it, just kind of just sit there and because I mean it's fun to do that now, but again, Final Fantasy 16 just came out. I'm not finished with Tears of the Kingdom. I'm like under halfway for Resident Evil 4 remake. I have so many things to play that needlessly grinding a character that's going to become useless in a month is not appealing to me. When the seasons come, and there's 3 months time to grind and get better loot and whatnot, then I'll do it. But for this little time period we have now, uh, it's just not for me at this right at the second.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that.
All right, Jerby. So, if you had to give this a number, okay, for a score, what would you give Diablo?
So I think I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5. Um, I think it's a great game. Um, but I do have like a few criticisms while they're like very small. Um, it's just enough that it's like, oh man, like I wish the game wasn't this way. But yeah, I think that overall the game is pretty fantastic. Both from like a Diablo perspective, but also just like the fun factor. Like I said, like I think about the game all the time, and even if I'm playing other games, I'm like, oh man, I really want to jump back into Diablo 4 and like just experience more side quests or do more dungeons or hit up the nightmare dungeons. Um, so yeah, I think a 4 out of 5 is where I'm leaning towards on this one.
Yeah, so if we're going on like a 5 point scale, I would give it a four as well. I don't think it's a five because I do think there are a couple problems with it.
Yeah,
But in terms of like, so if I had to give it like a score out of 100, I would probably lean between 85 to like 88, maybe even like 89.
yeah,
Uh, so essentially a 9 out of 10, right? I think that it does so many things fantastically. Um, but there's just those few things that like when you go into like a town and my game stutters. So just for clarity, I'm playing on PC, whereas Drew is playing on Xbox Series X, correct?
yeah,
Okay. So when I go into towns, my frames drop a little bit. That's not necessarily a huge thing, but it's just something that I notice. Um, so I played a sorcerer. What did you play?
I played as a necromancer. That was my main character. And then I also have like a rogue that's level 30. I forgot to say my necromancer is level like 51, I think.
Yeah, that's what my I played sorcerer. I did an arc light build. Very good, but your not what you think of like when you think of like a traditional sorcerer. This one's more melee build.
Yeah,
Um, and it's an in and out high damage. Some of the problems with the build is that it's like it's inconsistent with the damage, and that was troubling at times. Like that, of course, that's not necessarily the game's fault, but the way that I built my character. Um, and that's one of the great things about Diablo that I'll have to say really quickly is that even though there's 5 classes, right, and then there's several different ways that you can take your character. So for like instance, sorcerer, Blizzard revealed was the highest picked character class, and there's like 4 or 5 ways that I personally know that you can play the character. There's like a fire build, an ice build, um, a lightning build, which is what I did, but I did it in like a melee sense instead of like a range sense. And I think that it's very cool that you can play the same class but have totally different play styles. Um,
yeah,
it, and you actually played a little bit more on your rogue, right? So you're level 30 on your rogue.
yeah. So I'm level 30 on my rogue. That's the character that I started with. And then some of my friends picked up the game late, so I just hopped on that character to help them level up for a bit. Um, I'd say out of those two classes, though, I definitely think the rogue is my favorite. Um, I just love how fast the rogue is, but I did build my necromancer to where their attack speed is through the roof. It's insane. I went with like a blood build, um, which was a ton of fun. I was just like before, like kind of when I started, I was just like choosing random abilities. And I was like, I'm not really like having that much fun with this character. But then I like watched some videos on builds, and I saw this really cool blood build that I slightly tweaked. I like changed like one ability or something like that, which I preferred over the other one. And so now my necromancer's like super great. So yeah, and I honestly don't understand why people say that's a underpowered class. I just think that people aren't building it correctly. Um, but yeah, that's like one of the really cool things about the game. All of the classes feel really unique, in the sense that all of their base abilities are very different and they have different play styles. But you can make a necromancer a tanky character if you wanted to, or you could
Mhm.
make it have like a really fast attack speed, or however you want to build those characters. Which is like it just adds so much replayability. Like especially whenever you get hit with the seasonal characters, um, I feel like there's gonna be there's like enough there to where if you wanted to play the same class every season for some reason, I don't know why you would do that. No, I'm just kidding. But if you wanted to play the same class, you could switch up your build like every season or something like that, or like try something different. Um, so yeah, there's just a lot of variety there that I think is really fantastic.
Yeah, agreed. And like Drew said, like you can play the same character for every season if you want to, because I mean you'll be getting different armors and weapons and stuff every season. It's just if you're not bored of that character, I guess go for it. But with there being there'll be a different meta, of course, every season. Things will get buffed and nerfed and everything. Yeah, and I'm personally going to take the time in season one to change classes.
Yeah,
Normally I start on barbarian for every Diablo, but this time I was like, you know what? I'm going to switch it up. And on launch night, I hadn't decided on a class just yet. And we were playing with some of Drew's friends, and one of them suggested they were going to be a barb. So I was like, I'm going to take this time, to play sorcerer, maybe even do like a little bit of ranged. I ended up not doing ranged. I do have like range abilities, like I have fireball, I
yeah,
have the fire hydra, fully maxed out, so that I can run around and it can damage things for me while I run around and not die.
true.
Because sorcerer is not great on health and vitality, so
Yeah,
yeah, but I think I'm gonna go Barb for season one, just because it's familiar. And if I don't happen to do that, I'm probably gonna go Druid. I feel like I want to do like a tanky thing since I didn't, get to tank much in base game. So
yeah,
I'm leaning. So I for full clarity, disclosure, I did start a second character because originally Drewby and I were gonna play through this together, and then our schedules didn't line up, so we didn't get to play a ton together. But on launch night, I started the sorcerer. Drewby was having a lot of trouble getting into the game on night one. Um, so a couple of his friends and a buddy of mine hopped on, and we played that night. And then the next morning I had off because I knew I was going to be obsessed and hooked in Diablo. I started a druid, but I only got to like level 10, I think.
yeah,
So I barely scratched the surface of the character. Um, and I really enjoyed what I did play, even though it's literally nothing when you're level
yeah,
10. So I think I might go druid. The more I talk about it now, I think I might go druid for season one.
yeah. Yeah, Druid's a character that I almost started with, but I ended up not doing. Part of me wishes I would have, just because it seems like a really interesting and fun class to play as. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely excited to try it out eventually.
So what are you leaning for, or leaning toward rather, on season one character?
Yeah. I think I'm probably gonna go rogue. But I might try sorcerer. Um, like especially with the teleportation uh ability that the sorcerer has, it's super awesome. So
It's so good. It gets you
yeah,
out of so many sticky situations, and even like when you're in dungeons and you can't use your mount,
yeah,
you just teleport through a wall and boom.
yeah,
That's one thing I'm going to be devastated to lose whenever I
for
do
sure.
start something in season one. Is I'm going to have to walk through doors again, and that's going to suck.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, like I just want to choose like a high damage output character. for season one, especially because I'm really curious to try out like PvP, and I know Rogue and Sorcerer are like the two go-tos for PvP characters, so probably gonna lean towards those. But I don't know, who knows? I might try something completely different whenever the season drops.
Yeah, that's true. Even now, like the build that I worked on, and I was tweaking it along the way because there were some things that I just didn't want to do. I didn't want to go like full lightning build, so I have some like ice and fire in there as well. So it's kind of like a hybrid character with mainly like essentially the way I do a lot of damage is I stun people and I can freeze them with my freeze. Like I have like a frost shield that goes around me for like 15-20 seconds or something like that, and it has a chance of freezing the enemies around me. So when they're stunned or frozen, my Hydra, my arc light whip does insane amount of damage.
Yeah,
Uh, it's just that whenever it's not frozen or stunned, it doesn't do great amount of damage. But I mean, it also has like every hit adds and stacks. So you have the more you hit and have like a chain going, you have a higher crit chance.
mm,
Um, so yeah, that's where the inconsistencies come in. But overall, it was a fun time.
yeah,
But yeah, that's exciting stuff. We're both very much looking forward to season one. It should be coming mid to late July, which
yeah,
is great timing, really, because we should be done with Final Fantasy 16 by then.
sure.
Um, but that's our general thoughts on Diablo. But I want to go in, and we talked about gameplay a little bit, but this is something that I want to touch on really quick. So if you don't know anything about Diablo, this game is an action RPG, or an ARPG for short. Um, there's not a ton out there like it, but there are clones. But I would say the Diablo is king and top of the crop. Um, it's personally my favorite.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, it's got that Blizzard um, charm that's always there. Um, and yeah, I think that if you don't know what an ARPG is, I'm not going to be able to explain it to you well. So I would just look up gameplay of Diablo, even if it's not Diablo 4. What is the game? Is it Torchlight that was like that?
It
Do you
might
remember
be.
Torchlight?
I'm not sure. I was gonna say Path. Wasn't it Paths of Exile was one?
Yes.
Um,
Baldur's Gate as well.
Baldur's Gate, yeah. But yeah, I guess like the best way to describe it is like the camera is usually top down, um, and like you have like all these different abilities. Like you have your base attack, but then you unlock all these different abilities like uh that you can utilize in combat and stuff. But yeah, it's and then of course you can't go without mentioning that a lot of ARPGs are really focused on loot.
Yes.
Um, so games like Borderlands, uh, Destiny, they all pulled a lot of inspiration from like games like Diablo and Baldur's Gate and everything like that.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
so so yeah, you'll a lot of games that you might play now, have taken inspiration from Diablo, which is really cool. But yeah, no, it's definitely, yeah, it's like a hard type of gameplay to describe if you've never seen it or played it before. So yeah, definitely check out some gameplay. Um, a lot of people are a little adverse to it just because it's the top-down camera, but I promise you, if you've never played a Diablo game before, Diablo 4 is like the perfect one to jump into,
Yep.
because it is a super fun gameplay loop.
Agreed. And Diablo 4 is they intentionally made the game this time for consoles as well. This is the first Diablo that was developed with consoles in mind. Because even Diablo 3, it later came to Xbox One and PS4, but that
Yeah,
game was originally developed for PC. They just, I mean, they worked really hard and it was a good port, but from my understanding, I played on PC again, but I've been looking into the console space because eventually, because the game has cross play and cross progression,
Yeah.
So like if I got it from my PS5, I could pick up my characters from PC. And eventually I'll do that, and I'll probably wait for a sale because I don't want to pay for full price for it again. But yeah. So supposedly this game is much better on console than D3 ever was, and I don't think that D3 even had like super glaring flaws, but I believe that they nailed the controller aspect of the ARPG on a console, which is very
Absolutely.
exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, the controls feel fantastic on it. And I mean they were really good in Diablo 3 as well. But yeah, it's like it's one of those games where you see it and you're like, "Oh, this is like a PC game." But then you pick up the controller and you're like, "Wow, like this honestly feels more like a controller game." Just cuz it's that good. Which is really nice cuz I usually prefer playing with a controller over mouse and keyboard. Even I'm just gonna be that guy. Even with like first person shooters, I like my
Boo.
controller. But I mean, obviously there are PC games where I will play with mouse and keyboard, um, like Rainbow Six Siege and stuff like that. Like I'm not gonna use a controller on that. But um, games like for like Call of Duty and like more arcade shooters, controller all the way. Um,
Yeah, that's actually fair because I mean, Siege is pinpoint. You're
yeah,
leaning in a doorway or a windowsill, and if you're not using mouse and keyboard on PC and you're playing as PC players, you're likely gonna lose every time unless you're super good on a controller. But
yeah, and especially because on the PC version they take out auto aim for the
yeah.
controllers, so you're at a massive disadvantage. Um, but yeah, so I guess real quick, like because we kind of like touched on like a lot of the gameplay elements. I kind of wanted to touch on like some of my criticisms real quick.
Okay.
So I'd say like my main criticism actually comes from the level design. Um, which is like kind of like it's kind of weird because there's a lot of great level design and there's a lot of great environmental like art as well. Like the aesthetic of the environments is incredible, especially like when you get into like the late game of the story. Phenomenal environments. Um, but there's a lot of level design in the game that just feels really unnecessary, and I like this is like kind of like a thing where like you don't really expect this from like a big triple A game nowadays. It's like I don't know. It's just like I feel like it's a waste of resources and space. But there's a lot of areas on some of the maps, especially like the dungeons and stuff, where you'd think that there would be something in this room over here, right? And you like go all like out of your way, like away from the main objective to go check out a room that's in like the corner of the dungeon map, and you walk in there and there's literally nothing. There's no enemies, there's no items, there's no loot. It's just empty. And like maybe the room looks cool, but it's like it kind of like for me stuff like that ruins the flow of gameplay because it's like I like to explore in games like these, right? Or just like any game in general. If it's like open enough that I can explore, I want to see everything. I want to find all the secrets. And when I go and explore in Diablo, sometimes I feel like I'm wasting my time because I'll go check out these like random rooms that are like away from the main objective, and then there's nothing there. Um, and so just really like slows down the gameplay a little bit, which is like really unfortunate because like most of the level design I think is great, but stuff like that it's just like like I don't understand the reasoning for why they designed some of the levels like that. Um, which I know like some of the like some of the like dungeons that you see on the map, not like uh mission dungeons or like quest dungeons, but like the random dungeons that you can go into. Those do have like some sort of procedurally generated levels um for like replayability. So that's more understandable, but like when I'm on a main quest and or like a side quest and I'm exploring an area and there's just nothing in these rooms. It's just like kind of annoying.
Yeah, see, I'm on the opposite spectrum of that. I actually love that because in Diablo 3, I found it annoying, but like when I was playing Diablo 2, it was doing the same thing. And I was like, okay, so this is just like Diablo charm. So when I got to 4, and there to Drew's point, there is a lot of that. And I agree that in the main quest dungeons, perhaps they should limit those because
Yes.
I like I'm the same way. I like having like when I clear a dungeon, I like knowing that I've explored every inch of it.
Yeah.
And there are, I mean, some of them are massive and there's nothing to them. There's just like torture chambers or something, or like some like containers to break for like 2 or 3 gold coins. So like there's
Yeah.
very little incentive to explore. But for me, that's part of the charm of Diablo and Blizzard. And maybe that's just a me thing, but I didn't like it in Diablo 3 until like towards the end, and I was like, okay, I get it now, right?
Yeah.
And I ended up leveling all of my characters to max level, or not max level, but like the max level in that world tier in Diablo 3. So I think it was what was the hard cap then? I don't remember.
I don't
Uh,
remember either, honestly.
but I did it for all the characters because there was a trophy for it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, by the time that like the second or third character rolled around, I just enjoyed it. It's dumb. It's not great level design, but I think it's like Bethesda jank. You know what I mean? There's a charm to it. Like it's
Yeah. No.
pointless and it maybe it probably shouldn't be there, but I find solace in the fact that they are there. Um, and with like the procedurally generated stuff, like that's bound to happen. But for the main stuff, I agree. I think that they should probably limit uh, those as well.
Yeah.
One of my complaints for this game is that sometimes like especially like towards the end of the story, the characters will be talking and I'm talking to another character and like the main dialogue like conflicts with each other. So
Hmm.
like there's a character called Lorath in this, and you meet him in Act 1. Um, so it's not very spoilerish. It was in the betas and the alphas and the playtest and the stress test, whatever the server thing was called, stress test.
Yeah.
Regardless,
Server Slam, I think.
yeah, that's it. Um, yeah, there was a point in which he was just talking like so when you click on a character in Diablo, there's multiple. Sometimes there's multiple like dialogue trees. Think of like Skyrim or like any Bethesda game. Um, he was talking like as if I asked him something for the main quest when I'm asking him like a side thing, like what
Yeah.
is this character doing? And he's talking and it's progressing the main thing. I'm like, I don't know which one to listen to. This is not good. Um,
Yeah.
that's one of my biggest things because that happened a lot for me towards the end of the game. And then there was this one point where like there was no dialogue at all,
Hmm.
and it was like the main quest line, right? So like
Yeah.
I needed to know the story. Well, I didn't because I didn't need to know, but I wanted to know the story. And yeah, it just wasn't. It was just silent, and I was like, "Am I supposed to be doing something?" And like a minute later, it was like, "Go to here," and I was like, "Oh well, shit, I don't know what it is." So I had to look up a YouTube video to see what the audio was. So I think the audio logs were uh my biggest complaint. I think so far because again, I haven't got to dive super deep into the end game, but from my understanding and talking to a few friends that are in the end game and are super into the loop of Diablo and the loot chase,
Yeah.
apparently the loot is not great. The loot drops is not um, it's not warranting your time, and probably the guy that I know that is the biggest Diablo fan that I know, um, he's already dropped off of it until season 1 because of the grind isn't worth it. He says, um, and that's honestly turned me off to wanting to do it because I mean I trust him a lot when it comes to Diablo. I mean that
Yeah.
he's the guy that I ran Diablo 3 with and bought Diablo 2 for me. And yeah, he just he like he's playing it still, but like he's not. I think he might be doing another character versus grinding the end game
Yeah.
because apparently if you're not spending like a crap load of time doing either the right things in the right places or something, like grinding isn't worth it.
Mhm.
And that's turned me off to potentially, wanting to grind out more of this base character.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. That's like something that's like really unfortunate. Especially because like the whole like meat and potatoes of Diablo is like you want to grind. Like that's the end game is grinding out dungeons, grinding out loot so you can just make the ultimate builds. Um it's like similar to how Destiny is, that's the same kind of gameplay loop that Destiny has.
Yep.
Um so you want to have reasons to grind. Um and thankfully like we don't have to wait super long for the first season to drop, and so I really feel like that's something that's going to get improved whenever that does drop, because we will have stuff to grind for, and we'll have a reason to do it when that drops. But it does kind of suck for the people who are playing right now, but at the very least the gameplay is fun enough to where it doesn't bother me too much, because even if there isn't a whole lot of reason to grind super hard right now, um the gameplay is just super addicting, so I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean that's another one of the thing is that there's always the gameplay loop that is so good and so satisfying, that makes the grinding easier. And
Yeah.
I love games that are grindy, but you don't feel like you're grinding. And that was one of the problems that I always had with Destiny at launch, is that there was no point in grinding Destiny at launch. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because like especially that first time when we didn't know how the light system worked,
Oh yeah.
uh, we were just grinding to get better stuff, and like it would have a higher light level, but like a lower base level, and
Yeah.
it was so confusing. But Diablo doesn't have that problem right now, to my understanding. It's just that it's not dropping great loot. It's dropping like double digits below your actual level, and that's just
Yeah,
not good.
for
Um,
sure.
especially like when you get to like the late game stuff. So, to my knowledge, like once you're in like the 70s and 80s, that's when the loot drop really just like starts hurting you. Um, and from 50 to there is a while, and I think that I'm either on the cusp of 51 or 51 now.
Uh-huh.
um and yeah, I've just been doing some spoilerish stuff that since we haven't gotten to the story yet. I'm trying to avoid spoilers for the people that are listening. um but there's a kind of like, not a quest, maybe it is a quest, I don't know. There's a task that is presented to you, that revolves dungeons and stuff, and I've done a couple of those, but other than that I haven't really touched anything else.
Yeah.
um and it's dropped decent loot, but again, I'm still 50, and I haven't went up to the next world tier yet. I haven't done like the dungeon that takes you to world tier 3. So I'm still in world tier 2, just kind of chilling and doing that task. But speaking of story, I think that we're going to transition here into the story. So if you do not want spoilers, now would be a time to pause the podcast, skim the search bar to wherever the story is not. So whatever the next topic is,
Yeah.
right? So
And
that
we'll
you
have
don't get spoiled.
timestamps for you to jump ahead if you need to.
Yes. So do that now, because we're gonna be talking some spoilers here. I don't think they're gonna be too bad, but if you care about the story in Diablo, which a lot of people do not, but if you do care, now would be the time. I'll give you 3 seconds. Five, four, three, two, one. I said 3 seconds, and then it was five. Oh well. Okay, I gave them more time. All right.
Yeah.
So, Mommy Lilith, dude, let me tell you something.
Oh, dude.
That
Yes,
her
sir.
as a villain is fantastic. My favorite villain of the entire franchise so far. She was utterly fantastic.
Agreed.
And right now, I'm gonna go to like the very end of the game, because I think that this is the thing that stuck with me so far, in terms of story,
Yeah.
is that the entire time the game's talking about like the prophecy, and how Inarius is gonna be the hero. He's gonna put the spear of light into the heart of darkness. Essentially, Inarius is killing Lilith, And when you finally get to hell, and he stabs her, and then she ends up killing him. That scene, that cutscene is so utterly fantastic. Oh
Yes.
my god, I had chills the entire time. The music is swelling and bombastic, and Lilith is just menacing, dude. It's so
Yeah.
good. I love a good villain.
That was peak Blizzard cutscenes because Blizzard always has those crazy
Yep,
CGI cutscenes.
nobody
And
does it better.
most of the cutscenes in this game, by the way, like for those of you who are listening, most of them are in engine. So like they'll be like in the gameplay and everything. But there's a few cutscenes in the game, mostly in the beginning and at the end, that are full on CGI, and they're awesome and like probably the best cutscenes that Blizzard has ever made.
Agreed.
But yeah, that whole sequence that you mentioned, and then like everything leading up to it, they have like this massive cutscene of like this huge battle with gosh, I can't remember her name. What was the character who was leading that army towards the end that you have to like escort?
Oh, shoot, I know who you're talking about,
Yeah,
but I
it's
can't
like
remember her
right on the
name.
tip of my tongue, but I can't think of
I'm
it.
gonna look. Oh, Prava.
Yeah, Prava, yes. She's like leading this massive army. They're like fighting a bunch of demons, and it's like it is one of the most epic battles I've ever seen in a game cutscene. And then Anarius comes down and like just starts destroying everything. It's super sick. Um, like, because I will say, um, I feel like towards the middle of the story, like there's a point where it kind of like slows down a bit for me. But then like once it starts getting closer to the end, it really starts ramping up, and like once we got to this moment of like this huge cutscene and everything after that, that's when I was like super into the story, and I was just like, this is awesome and epic. Um, so yeah, like that, I like still can't stop thinking about that whole cutscene because it was like maybe like 5 minutes or something like that. It was pretty long too, um, and it was just awesome.
Yeah, super good stuff, especially towards the end. I mean, this game really builds up the characters, and like Elias is a super cool character with a great voice actor.
Yeah,
I don't know what his name is, but man, he killed it. Elias was such a good like pain in the ass the entire like third and fourth acts,
yeah,
maybe even fifth act. I can't. No, fifth act's when you go to hell, I think, or right before hell. I can't remember.
it's right
Uh,
before.
but Elias is such a good character, and him and Lorath's dynamic is
Yeah.
really nice.
And
For the people that
Lorath was also voiced by like one of the most legendary like actors right now for like horror films and stuff. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I'm just gonna try and assume it's like this, but it's Ralph. It's Ralph Ineson. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but he's the dad in The Witch. Great movie, by
yeah,
the way. He's also in The Northman. He's also the Green Knight in The Green Knight. He's in Chernobyl. But yeah, like he has like one of the most distinct like voices. And so it's super awesome hearing him in this game. Um, but he's also in another game that we will eventually talk about in another episode. But he's also in Final Fantasy 16, which like it's just super cool hearing his voice in these like fantasy games because he has such a great voice for it. Um, so I just wanted to like touch on that real quick.
yeah, he's a great voice actor. He's got that super low, like almost ASMR version like voice. Uh, it's super soothing despite it
Oh
being
yeah.
super like low and growly. Um, man, you got me thinking about The Witch again, and God, I need to watch that movie again.
Oh yeah.
My girlfriend hasn't seen it, so I really need to get her to watch it.
Do it, dude. It's so great.
Dude, tonight's gonna be a rainy night here in North Carolina, so maybe tonight. Who knows?
Oh
We'll
yeah,
see.
yeah.
And I showed her. This is a side tangent. Sorry, guys. I showed her Hereditary and Midsummer, and she loved both of those. So
Mm.
I think I can win her over with The Witch.
Oh, for sure,
Um,
for sure.
but anyway, speaking of things that wouldn't we like to live deliciously in, Lilith is one of my favorite video game characters now. Um, she is so menacing, and up until the end, you know, she's kind of like one dimensional, sort of. And like, she's like, yeah, I'm the daughter of hatred. I want my dad's powers. You know, I want yada, yada, yada. Um, her dad being Mephisto, of course. Um, until we find out like I think it's a twist because I don't remember in the earlier in the story with Rathma being Inarius and Lilith's son, and like them being married and like them you know, having that relationship and then, you know, breaking it off and then, you know, they both went their separate ways. I don't believe that is revealed until the end. So I think that's the twist. Uh, but that really worked for me.
Yeah,
And seeing Lilith at the end, you know, with the tears and the blood and like talking about the son and showing him and like just seeing Anarius not be this godlike figure.
yeah,
Um, was super good. It added depth to the characters that I think was needed, and it did it perfectly for me.
agreed.
Um, and I know, like, once you beat the story, now you don't have to play the campaign again. But I think after a couple seasons, I'm just going to replay the story because it was my favorite Diablo story to date.
For sure, for sure.
Granted, there's not a ton of it prior, but I mean, I think that Blizzard were in their bag with this one. It's aside from like the actual gameplay, which obviously that's what Diablo is all about. The story is probably my favorite part of this. I think that I mean I was so in on Lilith. Like I know that like it's become like a meme, kind of like the Resident Evil village lady. I can't remember her name. Starts with like a D, right? What's her
Yeah,
name?
Lady D is what a lot of people call her because she like I think it's like Demetrice or whatever. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's convoluted for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, like Lilith has become like that mommy esque figure or whatever, and I said that at the top, but like
Nah, dude, she's not mommy.
it
She's
was
mother. All right.
true, and the daughter of hatred. True, let's not forget that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Uh, what did you think about the ending with Nirel and Mephisto? What did you think about that?
Yeah, yeah. So I was actually gonna say that I really liked how I feel like they're kind of like shaping up what the story moving forward is gonna be because I don't know if we even mentioned this at all. Diablo 4 is the first Diablo game that's like considered like a full live service game.
Yeah,
Um, so they're gonna be constantly like adding new story as the seasons drop. Um, and then eventually, you know, we're gonna get expansions as well and stuff like that. But I kind of like because the way that the story was like kind of ending, it almost seemed like you know they were gonna wrap it up like completely. It's like oh like
yeah,
there's like they could have ended it right there if they wanted to, but they didn't. They had this whole ending cutscene that like teased what's next. Um, because instead of trapping Lilith into the Soul Stone, uh, Narelle decides to trap Mephisto in the Soul Stone.
yeah,
And then she goes out on some adventure uh, with the Soul Stone, doing like whatever she's doing. They didn't really like allude too much to what she could be doing, but they're kind of shaping up Mephisto to be the main antagonist moving forward.
yeah.
Um, and so I really like that because it was like just really interesting, like something I wasn't expecting, and it perfectly sets up and shapes the story moving forward, in my opinion.
100%. And I think they left it ambiguous for that reasoning.
Yeah,
Like where is Narelle going? Why is she going there? Is the Soul Stone slash Mephisto like leading her somewhere, or is she leading him somewhere?
yeah,
Um, obviously we can theorize on that, but we don't know a concrete answer. And like Drew said, we are gonna get paid expansions for this eventually. We're gonna get battle passes, but every season we're getting story content. The developers have confirmed that.
Yeah.
I even think Rod Ferguson confirmed that every season will have story content.
Yeah.
Um, and even if it's drip fed to us, I think that's okay because I think that where they left us, because I could be wrong because I didn't play the first Diablo at all. I did beat two, but three wrapped up um not off of a cliffhanger like this one was.
Yeah.
So obviously that's intentional because they want to give us more story content. But I actually loved where we left off because it left me wanting more from the story.
Yes.
If they,
I was satisfied with how it ended, but it like has me excited for what's next.
right, because it closed that Lilith arc, right? Like Lilith is gone
Yeah.
probably permanently unless something comes up. But Mephisto being in the story, him like constantly coming up in acts and like wanting to help, and then like at the end they choose Mephisto over Lilith. Why was that chosen? Like, there's so many questions that I have that I want answered, and I think that they're going to deliver on that. It's
Yeah.
just when are we going to get that? Who knows? We're going to get. I'm hoping that we get enough from season one that like keeps me on the hook because
Agreed.
like right now I could play just another 20 hours of Diablo story just from that.
Yeah.
Because I really love where they're going. And I thought that I think Narelle, like, in Act 1 is the weakest of the bunch.
Yeah.
Except for like Act 4, which is like, 20, 30 minutes, if that. Um, and that's just it being short. But I didn't, maybe it's just because I played that chapter like two times before the game came out, but like her character I never loved,
Uh-huh.
but I'm so intrigued of where she's going now. Like, is she gonna become an antagonist? Like, is she gonna team
Yeah.
up with Mephisto? Like, there's so many possibilities that could happen.
Yeah.
And I honestly just cannot wait to see what does happen.
Yeah,
Um,
it's gonna be really interesting to see what they do with that, and I'm really excited to get to that point where we learn more about it. And also like just one other thing, before we move on, like related to that, uh, she left on a boat, like, and like is traveling across like the ocean.
mhm.
Um, so I think that kind of to me teases that we may eventually leave like this map of Sanctuary, and we might go in like an expansion or something like that.
Like
We might,
beyond Sanctuary.
yeah, we might go to like a new location or something. Um, which that would be like really cool. I mean, like the map already is really varied. And has a lot. I mean, like even though you finish the story, you don't cover the entire map in the story, which I
No,
thought was really interesting. There's still a lot of locations I haven't explored yet.
yeah,
Um,
same.
but it would be really cool if we go to some entirely new place with an expansion or something like that. So there's a lot of possibilities, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Like they say at the end that Lorath is the last Haradrim,
Yep.
and that Sanctuary is basically fucked essentially. And I'm really like that. Actually has me hyped because I thought about it originally, but I guess I just wasn't thinking about it right now. Of going somewhere else. I would love to see something that isn't Sanctuary, just to kind of like see how, like, I guess other civilizations and races and characters and stuff exist, and
Yeah.
like how this story, because I imagine that the story was just more than Sanctuary's dealing, and I would like to see how it impacted those areas, if at all. I
Yeah.
imagine it would, but I don't know. I guess we'll find out later down the road.
Absolutely. And of course, we will be covering it on the Casket Minds podcast.
Absolutely, we will be doing that. The last thing I think that we want to touch on, unless we can think of something else, is just the soundtrack really quickly.
Yeah.
Um, Man, that score is freaking sweet. Oh my
Top tier,
goodness,
dude.
dude.
Um.
Like, it's Diablo always brings the score.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
they set the mood in both visuals and audio. And like, I mean, this is my favorite video game soundtrack in a hot minute, and I mean just like not like Hi-Fi Rush like, but like I don't
Yeah,
know. There's just something special about Diablo and the sounds and the music and
agreed.
just everything audio wise with these games is it just does it for me.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, like the other games have great soundtracks, but this one is on another level. They somehow like top the other games, which is crazy because like they have great soundtracks. But like this one, I think what I love the most about it is it all kind of like stays consistent, but there's a lot of variety. Every location has a different theme.
Yep.
Um, and it fits the mood and the setting and the atmosphere and everything of those locations. And then you've got like great battle themes, and just there's a lot of strings that are used, like especially in Kiavastad, like main uh, the main like
Like Hub
town.
World,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, the main hub. Um, the soundtrack there is fantastic, and it has
So
just
good.
like all these like cellos and violins and stuff that just it's just gorgeous. So yeah, like this is one of the best soundtracks in a long while. But I mean, I feel like I could say that about a lot of games this year because we've had a lot of great games this year. But I definitely think that this is going to absolutely be a contender, even possibly the winner for soundtrack of the year at the Game Awards.
Yeah, there's been a great soundtrack uh for a bunch of video games this year. That's just because this is going to go down as the best year in gaming, which is great timing for the CasketMInds podcast since this is
For
our
sure.
uh, founding year. But yeah, I think this one's going to win because for me, I could just, and I did honestly, I have like a dual monitor setup. And since I was playing on PC, I would literally just sit in one of the towns or just on the main menu and just listen to the main theme while I just played around on my computer. It's just so good, and I know that I could listen to it otherwise, but I don't know, just having the game up on one and just browsing the web or like chatting away was super good. And I continue. I actually before we started recording, that's actually what I was doing. I was just walking around uh in one of the main. I forget what the last big hub you go to after you beat the game.
Oh yeah, I can't
Um,
remember what it's called.
but I was just walking around that town, just listening to its theme, and it's so good. It really does a great job at immersing you in the world.
Yeah,
Um, and I played with headphones. I know not everyone does, but I'm playing um, with headphones, and it really just drags you into that game.
for sure.
And it's a huge compliment for me that if a game's audio can do that by itself, not only that, but like the gameplay and the aesthetic of it and the vibe. If those three things can just draw you in without even needing the gameplay, you've got a great game on your hands. And fortunately for us, Diablo 4 is a great game.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to add on Diablo 4? Or should we wrap up
I
our
think,
thoughts
yeah,
on
I think we
Diablo?
can wrap up right there because I feel like we covered kind of the main elements of why this game is fantastic and why you should play it.
All right. So from us at Casket Minds, on the 5 point scale, we are going with a 4 out of 5. If we did the half measures, I would probably give it a 4.5. I'd probably give it a
Agreed.
9 out of 10.
Agreed.
Because man, like that game is special. For me, I still haven't played Jedi Fallen Survivor. Uh,
Jedi
I
Fallen
haven't.
Survivor, dude.
Did I say
Yeah.
that? Oh my god. I haven't played Jedi Survivor yet. I haven't played Dead Space yet. I haven't finished Resident Evil 4, though I'm loving what I have played of it. I've actually played Resident Evil 4, the original, recently, so it's weird going through it because it's very close to the original. But as of right this second, as of we're recording this, Diablo 4 is my game of the year, and that's also with me playing 15 hours of Tears of the Kingdom. And I know I haven't scratched the surface of that yet, but still, Diablo 4 has my heart right now. So we'll
Yeah.
see how the rest of this year goes. And as soon as we get done recording this, I'm going to hop on Final Fantasy 16. So I love what we got at the demo. So we'll see how we're feeling in about 6 months, Ruby. Because we're only 6 months through, and we have some Game of the Year contenders, and
Oh
we
yeah.
still have several more Game of the Year contenders coming in the next 6 months, which is very exciting.
It's insane, honestly. And I feel like we're not even gonna get the chance to play half of them because there's so many that are coming out.
There's so much; it's ridiculous. Uh, and speaking of more games, we're going to transition into the news segment for this week, guys. Right when we thought that E3 season was over, Nintendo pulled a Vince Carter and said, "I got one more in me, ladies and gentlemen."
Yes,
Um,
sir.
they dropped a Nintendo Direct this week, which is extremely exciting because when you get a direct in June, that means it's an E3 direct, which means that we have a higher standard and quality and something that we expect. We have higher expectations in June because that's just how this thing rolls. Looking at you, PlayStation, do better. So
Seriously.
the Nintendo Direct was the most Nintendo Direct of all the Nintendo Directs. Um, like you know what you're getting out of these things at this point, and it's good and bad because I would like to see them do a little bit better, but at the same time, um, we got a lot of bangers out of this one and a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
first party Nintendo bangers out of this one. So we're not going to break down everything in the direct. I don't think that it's worth it for a lot of people, but if
Yeah.
you're interested in the Nintendo Direct, obviously it's up online. You can watch it now. It's about 40 minutes, give or take. But we're gonna hit the highlights for you real quick. If you're a Pokemon fan, they revealed the first Pokemon expansion. It's called the Hidden Treasure of Area Zero. Um, it's a planned fall 2023 release. Actually, they revealed the second one as well, which is winter 2023.
Yeah.
They put two Pokemon on the front of it. I have not played this iteration of Scarlet and Violet yet. I'm slacking. Normally on day one, like sucked into Pokemon, but for some reason I just wasn't this time. I think I know why. It's
Well,
because
it's probably because the performance is pretty bad.
yeah, exactly. It launched very poorly, and I don't think that it ever got fixed. But I'll get to it eventually. I promise. But until then, yeah, Nintendo DLC coming out. I didn't play the DLC for the other one. That's one thing about me, guys, is that I don't play a lot of DLC, and it's usually because once I put the game down, I never go back to it unless it's like a live service game or something. Um, DLC's cool, but like it's hard for me to get back into the rhythm. Like for instance,
Yeah.
when I picked up Horizon Forbidden
For
West DLC.
Verizon Forbidden West.
When I picked up that DLC, I was like, how do I play this game again? Like I have everything unlocked because I got the platinum and trophy in that game, and I'm like struggling to remember how to even shoot the bow. I'm like, what? How did I do this? And like there's a flying mount and stuff, and I'm like, how do I call that again? And so it takes me a little while to like warm up to the mechanics and stuff and remember how to
Yeah.
play. So normally I stray from DLC unless it's like severely highly rated. um but like the PlayStation expansions I usually do a pretty good job at because I like the stories in them. But I do need to get back to Verizon or Forbidden Hest, I guess. I guess that's what we're gonna call it from now on. But
Yeah.
yeah, so DLC for that, it's coming. Persona 5 Tactica is coming to Switch. We already knew that. This was a cool little surprise, and normally I wouldn't mention it, but it was one of my favorite things of the direct. They advertised it as a Saturday morning cartoon. It's like an FPS, like
Roguelike, I
magic.
think, right?
Yeah, and it's super cool looking. Obviously, it's a cartoon looking game. It's called Myth Force. It's out this year, and I believe that's the only thing they gave on it. Um, I love this, and I honestly can't wait to play it. It's co-op. I think it's up to 4 players, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so.
yeah, so that's one of the trailers I would recommend going to watch. Because I mean, it looks like a cheap game, but like at the same time, I'm a person that grew up with Saturday morning cartoons, like the WB game, like stuff. like Dragon Ball Z, and then Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, that kind of stuff. The Looney Tunes stuff, that was fun. But yeah, cool little trailer.
Yep.
Splatoon 3 new events happening. You get to pick between ice cream flavors. You get vanilla, strawberry, and mint chip. I don't know how Splatoon operates in terms of business, but apparently it has to be doing something right. The
Yes.
gameplay is
You already
utterly
know that if I were to play Splatoon 3, I'm 100% going with mint chip. Give me that toothpaste ice cream. I love it.
uh I actually don't hate mint chocolate chip, but I also don't like it. Actually, I like it on certain things, like the mint Oreos, dope. You know what I mean?
True.
But for like ice cream, I'd rather just have like I'm a chocolate chip cookie dough kind of guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I,
that's fair. That's one of the goats.
I mean that thing is so good, dude. Let me tell you something. We got a this is another little tangent, but we have a plethora of ice cream shops around here where I live. I'm about 5 minutes away from the best one in the area, and let me tell you something. That's a dangerous thing. Living this close to ice cream, and it's hot outside now, dude. Forget
Oh
about it.
man.
Speaking of forgetting about it, Detective Pikachu, a new game is coming to the Nintendo Switch. It is voice acted, which is extremely exciting because
Yeah.
it looked like a lot of fun. I won't lie. Um, they showed the Pokemon DLC. That was the thing they opened with, and they showed Pokemon again. And I was like, "Ooh, are we actually getting a new Pokemon game?" And we are, but it's not like a mainline one. It's Detective Pikachu. It's called Detective Pikachu Returns. It is out October the 6th. It looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I can't wait for it. But Drewby, let me tell you something about not waiting for it. You ready for this?
I'm ready for this, dude.
Super Mario RPG has been remade for the Nintendo Switch. It is beautiful, it is epic, and I cannot wait for it. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is a game that I am so looking forward to.
Same, especially because I've never played the. I mean, I played a little bit of Paper Mario, but I haven't played enough of that, and I also haven't played Super Mario RPG. So this is gonna be awesome. This will be my first time experience with it.
Yes, you're in for a freaking treat, dude. This game is coming this year, surprisingly, and I am so happy about it. It's November the 17th. Um, Actually, this is where the direct actually was like, "Hey guys, you know Mario? We have Mario."
We have a
So they
lot of
opened
Mario.
right. So they opened with Super Mario RPG, and then they announced a new Peach game with new details coming next year, where Peach is the protagonist in it. And
Yeah.
then they announced that Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon is getting a remaster for the Nintendo Switch, which is extremely hype. Oh my
Oh yeah.
gosh. I love me some Luigi's Mansion, and Dark Moon was fantastic.
Yep. And that's coming out next year as well.
Yep, very exciting stuff. 2024 is already shaping up to be a fantastic year for video games.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Especially Nendo.
yes, Nintendo is looking great. Uh, if you've lived under a rock for the past decade and you have not played the Arkham trilogy, you can now do so if you own a Nintendo Switch. Looking at you, right guy.
That's only if you want to explode your Switch, though. It might
That's
catch
true.
on fire, especially if you play Arkham Knight.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine? I can't wait to hear the stories of this.
Oh yeah.
Um, so there's a lot of Nintendo filler. This is what the directs
But
are.
wait,
They're
wait. One of these fillers, we gotta mention it, dude.
what is that?
We've got Just Dance 2024 coming to the Nintendo Switch, baby.
Boom, 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 boom.
Oh man.
Yeah, Just Dance is coming to the Switch. So if you want to dance with your Switch, there you go. So the next 10 to 20 minutes is a bunch of filler, including Hot Wheels Unleashed 2, but no one cares about that.
And our favorite announcement from the Summer Game Fest, Bay Farm.
I forgot they showed that here. Yeah, that game showed back up, guys. About the 35-minute mark. Actually, no, it was like the 25-minute mark. I apologize. I forgot this thing was 40 minutes. They showed Pikmin 4. It looks fantastic. I've never
Yes.
played a Pikmin,
I
but
want to now though.
luckily for me, Pikmin 1 and 2 got shadow dropped on the day of the direct, which was Wednesday, I believe. I think it was
Yeah.
Wednesday, which would have been the 21st. Pikmin 1 and 2 is now on Switch. Of course, the third one is also on Switch. There is a Pikmin 4 demo coming the 28th, which, if you're listening to this on the Friday that it releases, would be next week. Either way, it's probably next week for you anyway. But regardless, the June 28th Pikmin 4 demo is coming out. They followed that up with the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection. It got dated. It also got a lot more details. It's coming with like strategy guides and stuff, and on the disc / cartridge if you get it for the Switch, which is very cool.
Yeah.
There's like soundtracks, there's graphic novels, like obviously digital. There's like an archive. It's a bunch of cool stuff on this collection. And again, they
For sure.
reiterated the volume 1, indicating that there will be a volume 2. But
Yeah.
the best thing to come out of that was the announcement of the date, which is October the 24th of this year. So Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3, the original Metal Gear, Metal Gear 2, and I believe Snake's Revenge is also on there.
I
Yes,
think that sounds right. Yeah.
Yep, it is on there. So yeah, if you're a Metal Gear Solid fan like Jimmy Jam, Walker Texas Ranger Man, yeah, this is great things for you.
Yeah.
Even though he's already played all of them except for 3, I think. But regardless, Metal Gear fans are fixing to eat good. So,
Yes, sir.
Speaking of eating good, Drewby, somehow we did not know this was a thing, but Vampire Survivors is coming to the Switch. I thought this has already happened, but I guess it's just for phones. Why?
You guys have phones, right?
You got games on your phone?
Yeah,
Can I
dude.
play Can I play Rainbow Six Siege on your phone?
You could.
All right, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that game's coming October the 17th. I know a lot of people are fans of that game.
I'm a pretty big fan of it. It's super addicting.
I still haven't played it yet, but I want to. I still want to play it.
It's good.
The next big thing announced was Mario Kart 8 DLC. The fifth wave is coming out this year, or this summer actually. Sorry, it is. I think all of the DLC is finishing up by the end of this year, but summer 2023 was the date / window. There's a new course, Squeaky Clean Sprint, which is exciting. I like that they're adding in new stuff as well as the old.
Oh, yeah.
PD Piranha, the character from Double Dash, the GameCube version. Wiggler, the character from Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS. And I guess that's how you say it. Kamek.
Comic.
He's from Mario Kart Tour. Yeah, it's available summer 2023. I imagine they're going to shadow drop this randomly one day.
Probably.
Mario Kart levels coming, so I'll be booting that back up, playing some more. Speaking of things I'm not going to be booting up though, Truby, they announced a new WarioWare game. I thought this was going to be DLC, but nope, they decided that we needed another one so soon after the first one, I guess. It's called Move It. So if you want the competition to Just Dance, you got a WarioWare game coming.
Oh yeah.
November the 3rd. And there's 2 more things that were announced. One really big, and one really small. Both literally and physically. There's Zelda and Ganondorf amiibo coming this holiday from Tears of the Kingdom. Both of those look pretty sweet. So if you're into the amiibo collecting game, Zelda and Ganondorf are coming this holiday. And then Drew. For the last thing of the Nintendo Direct of June 2023. 2D Mario, baby. Confirmed.
Yes, sir.
It looks super sweet. It is called Super Mario Bros. Wonder. It looks utterly fantastic. It's a new Mario game. Obviously, if you love Mario or even like Mario, this is extremely hype.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about this. It looks so charismatic, so full of character, so full of I almost said itself, but that sounds condescending. It's not. It's oozing with style and
Yeah,
charisma, and
and
I just cannot wait.
it looks a lot more unique than like the last 2D Mario that we had.
Yeah, it's very expressive.
Yeah, there's just like a lot of new things that they're adding. It's also 4-player co-op. You can play as Daisy, which that's awesome.
Yes,
Yeah,
Peach.
also Mario can turn into an elephant.
He beat me to the punch, but yes, you can play as an elephant. Those four co-op characters are Peach, Daisy, Mario, and Luigi, of course.
Yes, and maybe they have more hidden away for release.
True that, or they'll just make you pay for it or give you free DLC. Who
True,
knows?
true.
I don't know. Does Nintendo normally give DLC for these kind of games, like 2D Mario games? I guess with Bowser's Fury, but they just that was kind of like a
I can't
rebundling.
remember honestly.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I cannot wait to play this game. It comes out October the 20th, which is unfortunate because that is Spider-Man 2's release date as well.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm not playing Mario, or let me rephrase that. Whenever I'm not playing Spider-Man, I'm gonna be playing Super Mario Bros. Wonder because this game looks so good.
Spider-Man.
I'm looking at a screenshot right now of Mario and Peach like using their hats as a parachute to get to the end of the level, and it just looks so good. I cannot wait for this game, guys. But yeah, that wraps up the Nintendo Direct. It was I'd probably give it like an 8 out of 10 direct because I mean I'd knock a point for all the filler because I don't think Nintendo really nails directs greatly, but I mean it has the Nintendo charm, right?
Oh, sure.
It's got the cringe what do you call it, like voiceover because they're speaking Japanese and the English people are just terrible, but that's part of the fun as well. But yeah, there's been some new developments in the Activision accusations. Accusations. Dude, I cannot talk today. What is happening with me right now? So this
Activision does have a lot of accusations. I will say that.
Yeah, that's actually very true. This comes from Benji Cells over on Twitter. Bombshell from Sarah Bond. Bobby Kotick forced Microsoft to give Activision higher revenue to share. Let me rephrase that. Bobby Kotick forced Microsoft to give Activision higher revenue share to keep COD on Xbox X/S. Quote, Kotick made it clear if we did not move beyond standard revenue share that he intended not to place Call of Duty on Xbox, end quote. So for anyone not aware, there is a huge court case going on right now between the FTC and Xbox about the Blizzard Activision acquisition. Oh my goodness gracious.
Accusation.
Yeah. I need sleep and caffeine, I think. At the same time, that's not a very good combination, but whatever. But so there's a huge court case going on, and I do want to say that next week's episode will be breaking down that entire thing because there is a lot of juicy details coming out of this.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately for us, it's still going on right now, so we can't give you all the details. And when I do give you all the details, I want to be able to give it to you all at once. And hopefully it's over by the next episode of the podcast. But if it's not, we're going to go over the meat and the juicy details of that because it's very interesting. And there's a lot of stuff that probably shouldn't have been said in this thing that was absolutely said and said it with their chests. And I'm excited to get into that next week. So that's the next episode 7 of the CasketMInds podcast. But yeah, what do you think about this, about the bombshell that Sarah Bond dropped?
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, Activision had this like really close relationship with Sony. And I mean, like they have, this contract where DLC, like the PlayStation gets exclusive DLC for the new CODs, which I think is stupid. Like, honestly, like I can't stand that kind of thing. It's
The thing about that is that on the 360, that was Xbox had that
oh
then.
yeah, no, I mean I think that's stupid too.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
I just wanted to make it like for clarity's sake that like
yes,
these deals happen because someone is leading the industry, and at the time, the 360 was dominating the PS3 because the PS3 won the life cycle, quote unquote.
yeah,
Uh, but it didn't happen until the end of the PS3's life cycle that it actually caught up. Like 360 was dominating the marketplace for like the mid 2000s.
yes.
But yeah,
Oh
I agree. It's also dumb. Unfortunately, those are just kind of how um, the slime works of the corporations.
yeah.
Of hey, if you don't do this thing, we're gonna take it away from you. I know I forget what the UK like the regulation body, what is it called that was trying to stop the accusations.
Oh, I can't remember off the top
I
of my
can't think of
head.
it off the top of my head either.
Yeah,
But basically the UK was trying to stop this deal from going through, and um, Activision was like, "Hey, we're not going to give you games in the UK if you don't do this." So
yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of politics involved, as you would expect with businesses and corporations, and uh, the whole lot of that. Um, Actually, one of the things that I'll give you a little preview for next week on the episode as well. Right before we started recording, it came out that PlayStation actually tried to make Starfield a PlayStation exclusive um, before Xbox acquired Bethesda at all.
yeah,
So there was a chance that Starfield would have been PlayStation had they not been bought by Xbox. And you know when that deal went through and they announced it or it leaked or whatever, I can't remember exactly which one it was. Um, they were like, "Wow, that's a lot of money for Bethesda." Even though I mean they're going to make that money back easily, but they were like, "Hey, that's a lot of money that they just spent." And it's Microsoft; it's $1 trillion company, right? But at the
yes.
same time, it's like, man, that's a lot of money. And I forgot what the main point of that was, but I did want to say that PlayStation got some Bethesda games exclusively before Xbox did, even after the acquisition, um, which was Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. Those didn't come to Xbox until later,
Yeah,
but obviously PlayStation had a good relationship with Bethesda, um, and then they got acquired by Xbox. And then Xbox was like, "Hey, we can't allow these third-party games to be going to like the dominant leader in the industry. Like, we need as much reinforcement as we can," and that's why a lot of
yeah,
these acquisitions happen. Um, but yeah, a lot more of that on the next episode of the podcast.
for sure.
Um, and moving on to more Xbox news, Drew. In an interview with Famitsu, is that how you say it? Famitsu?
I think it's Famitsu, but I could be wrong.
Okay. If you're not familiar, then you won't know how to say it anyway. So forgive us for
It's a Japanese like media
outlet.
site. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Phil Spencer did an interview with them. Um, he says that Japanese manufacturers trust us, and the development of the Kojima project is going well.
Yeah.
We still don't know what that is, but it's very exciting nonetheless because Kojima
Yes.
is one of the industry's most exciting leaders in video games. If you're not familiar with who Hideo Kojima is, Death Stranding, Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hills, and what PT was Kojima. Um,
Yes.
Extremely weird, but one of the brilliant minds of the gaming industry.
For sure. But yeah. Um yeah, it's really exciting that he's working on an Xbox exclusive cuz he's mostly done work with PlayStation.
Yep.
Um so I'm like really curious to see like what he's got going on with that, and like that's great news that, a lot of work has been, or like a lot of progress has been made, cuz I thought that this game was going to be like kind of further out since he's working on Death Stranding too. Um I don't know. Maybe it'll come out within the next few years. I'm kind of hoping it's a horror game because Peachy is like awesome, and I'd love to see him delve into that genre. And to have like a horror game exclusive for Xbox would be really cool.
Yeah, that would be massive. Um, really excited to see what he's been working on besides Death Stranding 2. But I don't think we're gonna have to wait too much longer for that. Maybe the Game Awards or so.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and just we got two more pieces of news this week. Not huge things, but um, just little updates, I suppose. So EA is realigning its studios into two organizations: EA Entertainment and EA Sports. If you know anything about EA, you know that EA gets their profits, and a lot of their profits come from their sports titles.
Yeah.
FIFA, Madden, the PGA Tour games are all EA. FIFA itself drags in billions of dollars for them. Um, Ridiculous numbers, but they split up. Um, it's not necessarily like earth-shattering news, but I think it's interesting that EA Entertainment is a thing
Yeah.
because everything that isn't EA Sports obviously is going to go under the EA Entertainment umbrella,
Yes.
and I think this leaves the door open for um, content and media um, outside of just games. So I
Yeah, I
think they could
agree.
do like shows and movies, and Netflix loves taking video games and making shows out of them. So maybe
Yeah.
something EA related is heading that way. Who knows? But yeah, that's something to keep our eyes on for sure.
Yeah. One thing is that it seems like nothing is gonna really change too much as far as the teams. Like there's not gonna be any layoffs or anything like that. They're just kind of separating their studios into like different departments so they can be more centralized in like what they work on. Um, One small thing, I mean, like I guess it's actually a big thing, but one big change that they're making is Vince Zampella, who was the co-founder, one of the co-founders of Respawn Entertainment. Um, he's kind of been moving his way up through the ladder of EA like over the
Yep.
past 5 years. A few years ago, or maybe it was last year, I can't remember. He started taking over kind of the lead charge of like all their first person shooters at EA, on top of like Apex and all of Respawn Entertainment's projects. But now he's going to be the lead of the EA Entertainment department, which is really exciting. He's made a lot of fantastic games, and I definitely think that he has like the skills to do that. I think that's like the right choice to make for EA. So that'll be really exciting. But yeah, I definitely think you're onto something, that them changing the name to entertainment kind of gives a little bit of a hint at like they're probably gonna start moving into other forms of media. Um, which I know for like years now they've been wanting to do a live action Mass Effect project.
Mm.
So fingers crossed, because I think that could be a really cool thing if like I don't know, let's say it's like an Amazon show or something like that.
Yeah, as soon as you said Mass Effect, that was the first thing that popped in my head. Is that Amazon could really use a huge sci-fi show,
Oh yeah,
and
especially
Mass
like
Effect would be great.
yeah, because they had the Expanse, which is a massively popular show, but that's ended. It's been over for a few years now. Um, so if they picked up a Mass Effect project, that would be sick. And I'd be willing to trust Amazon with that property too.
Yeah, I agree. I think they showed us with the Lord of the Rings show that they're willing to put the money where the mouth is, and
Yeah,
put out something quality. And I think that obviously Mass Effect is nowhere near the size of Lord of the Rings, but I think that they know that quality matters there, and they haven't.
yeah,
They I mean they make Amazon makes great quality stuff. They just don't have a ton of stuff, which is kind of their downside. But it's the opposite of Netflix's model of just quality or quantity over quality.
yeah,
Um, it's not like Netflix doesn't have anything great. It's just that they have so much Netflix originals and stuff. It's like, how do you pick and choose? You know what I mean? And a lot of it's not worth choosing. So,
yeah.
um, but speaking of choosing, Drew, the last piece of news that we have for you guys this week on episode 6 of the Casket Mind podcast is from Call of Duty. As Warzone moves ahead with exciting new experiences to come, Warzone Caldera will shut down on September 21st. all Caldera gameplay, player progression, inventories, and online services will expire on that date. If you're not familiar with what that is, that's essentially just Warzone 1. Um, Warzone 2 is approaching a year since release, so it's not necessarily surprising that they're shutting down um, the Warzone 1 and everything involved with it. It's not, I don't think it's baffling.
Yeah.
They want you to move to the next thing. They want you to buy the new stuff, the new skins, guns, and whatnot. You got any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so there's a few things. First off, the reason why they're doing this is because Warzone 2 hasn't been hitting the numbers that Warzone 1 was. Which I don't think it ever was going to. Like I feel like Warzone 1 when it first launched, that was that was a phenomenon. And the reason why it blew up the way that it did was because it came out right in the heart of the start of the pandemic. So it just dropped at the perfect time. Everybody was indoors and playing their life away on Warzone 1. At least I know I did. Uh, but yeah, like it just it's very clear that they're doing this because they just aren't hitting the numbers that they want to with Warzone 2. Um, but I also feel like they're doing this because I don't think there's enough people playing Warzone 1. And on top of that, Warzone 1 has had a huge problem with cheaters for a long while. Even
Yeah,
after
true.
they implemented some anti cheat stuff, it's just not, the anti cheat isn't as good as it is in Warzone 2. So there's like quite a few reasons why they're doing this. I'm not surprised by it. And I mean, yeah, like it sucks for the people who still wanted to play it, but that's just the way that this industry goes.
Yeah,
You
old
know,
game is old, and it eventually gets shut down.
exactly.
It, I, Granted, this is being shut down a lot sooner than a lot of games do get shut down. But I mean,
Yeah,
with the sequel out, the sequel being free, like Drew said, the player base isn't as good.
yeah,
They didn't really innovate on much when it came to Warzone 2.0.
yeah,
And the battle royale thing. I mean, it's still kicking, but like those extraction type of shooters are the next big thing, and that's in
yeah,
Warzone, but it's a small mode within the larger realm of the battle royale.
yeah,
And yeah, it's unfortunate, but I mean, it's not like it's a shock. It's expected, even if it's a little
sure.
sooner than expected. Um, but yeah, there is one more thing I do want to add because I think this is a great gesture. So I guess for the last news story now, this comes from Dixerto. Is that how you say it?
Dexerto, yeah.
Um, so Guerrilla Games added a Lance Reddick memorial in a new patch to honor his memory. Um, I don't know if it's in the Burning Shores or in the base game, but there is now a spot that you can go in uh, Verizon and view a memorial for Lance Reddick. If you don't know, he is an actor who passed away a few months ago. He's in a lot of things that you've probably seen, notably in gaming. Horizon, obviously, he's one of the characters that was in both um, Forbidden West and Zero Dawn.
Yeah,
He was in John Wick, but he passed
Destiny.
away. Yeah, he passed away tragically a few months ago, and yeah, Gorilla added a memorial for him, which is awesome. So
Yeah,
I'm definitely gonna boot up Horizon tonight and just go visit that because that sounds really lovely. And yeah, so on that note, once again, thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the Casting Minds podcast. Stay up to date on the latest gaming news and more. We'll see you guys next week with more FTC versus Xbox, and hopefully the week after that, a review of Final Fantasy 16. But that is that remains to be seen. Let's see if we can get through the game first. But yeah, guys, thank you guys so much for listening. As always, thank you guys for the support, and we'll see you next week.